Hello, all. Today we are going to talk about one of the most unusual and influential essays in modern feminist thought. It is Donna Haraway's A Cyborg Manifesto. It was written in 1985. First, let us answer the basic question: what is a cyborg? A cyborg is a cybernetic organism. That is a fancy way of saying a hybrid of machine and organism. Think of the Borg in Star Trek. Think of Robocop. Think of Darth Vader. These are cyborgs. They are part flesh, part machine. But Haraway is not just talking about science fiction. She says that we are all cyborgs already. Not in a literal sense. Most of us do not have microchips in our brains, but we are intimately connected to machines. We wear glasses, we use pacemakers, we take drugs that change our brain chemistry, we stare at screens for hours. Our bodies and our tools are fused together. By the late 20th century, we are all chimeras, theorized and fabricated hybrids of machine and organism. The cyborg is our ontology. It gives us our politics. The cyborg is not just a fact, it is a political myth. It is a story we can tell ourselves to help us think differently about identity, power, and resistance. This essay is ironic, blasphemous, hopeful argument for a new kind of feminism. Haraway wrote it for socialist feminists, but she wrote it as a heretic. She wanted to blow up the old certainties. She wanted to make a mess, and then out of that mess, she wanted to build something new. Haraway begins by identifying three crucial boundary breakdowns. These are the cracks in the old system. They make the cyborg possible. First is the human animal boundary. For a long time, Western thought depended on a clear line between humans and animals. Humans had language, tools, reason, and souls. Animals had instincts and bodies. But by the late 20th century, science had blown up this boundary. Primatologists showed that chimpanzees use tools. Neuroscientists showed that animals have complex mental lives. Ethologists showed that animals have social behaviors that look very much like culture. The line became fuzzy, and many feminists celebrated this fuzziness. They argued for connection with other living beings, not domination over them. Haraway is not afraid of this breakdown. She welcomes it. She says bestiality has a new status in the cycle of marriage exchange. That is a joke, but makes a serious point. When the boundary between human and animal is broken, we can no longer pretend that we are fundamentally different from the rest of nature. We are kin. Second, animal machine boundary. The second broken boundary is between organism and machine. Old machines were clunky, mechanical, and stupid. They needed humans to operate them. They were clearly tools, not partners. But late 20th century machines are different. They are microelectronic, they are digital, and they are smart. They learn, they adapt, they communicate. A computer is not a hammer, it is a prosthetic extension of your mind. Haraway writes, our machines are disturbingly lively, and we ourselves are frighteningly inert. She is being dramatic, but her point is serious. The difference between the living and the mechanical is no longer clear. We sit at our desks, staring at screens, barely moving. Meanwhile, The machines process millions of calculations per second. Who is the agent? Who is the slave? The third boundary is physical versus non physical. The third broken boundary is between the physical and the non physical. This is about information. Modern machines are not made of heavy gears and iron. They are made of silicon chips and electromagnetic waves. They are nothing but signals. A computer program is not a physical thing, it is pure information. It can be copied, transmitted, and edited without ever touching matter. This changes everything. If the world is made of information, then the body is just a code. Genes are codes, immune systems are recognition codes, brains are processing codes. Our best machines are made of sunshine. They are all light and clean because they are nothing but signals. This sounds utopian, but it is also terrifying. If your body is just code, then someone else can rewrite it. As I mentioned earlier, Haraway wrote this essay for socialist feminists. She was one of them, but she was also deeply critical of them. Her critique has two parts. First, she argues that traditional Marxist and radical feminisms tried to find a single unified source of oppression. Marxists said class, radical feminists said sex. They then built a total theory around that one category. Everything else was added later, like an afterthought. But this does not work. Race, class, gender, and sexuality cannot be stacked neatly on top of each other. They interact in complex and contradictory ways. A white middle class woman is oppressed by patriarchy but privileged by racism. A black working class man is oppressed by class and race but privileged by gender. There is no single essence of oppression. Second, Haraway argues that traditional feminisms relied on a false ideal of natural unity. They imagined that women were naturally closer to nature, more caring, more peaceful, and more connected. This is the ideology of ecofeminism and goddess worship. Haraway rejects this. There is nothing about being female that naturally binds women. The category woman is not natural. It is a social and political construction. It was created in specific times and places for specific political purposes. The dream of a common language, a perfect, truthful naming of female experience, is a totalizing and imperialist dream. It erases difference. It polices the boundaries of who counts as a real woman. Haraway wants to replace the dream with something else. She wants a politics of affinity, not identity. Not who am I by nature, but who can I make common cause with by choice. Haraway then introduces a pair of charts. The left side is the organics of domination. This is the old world. It is organized by binaries: mind, body, nature, culture, male, female, human, animal, reality, and appearance. The right side is the informatics of domination. This is the new world. It is organized by networks, codes, and information flows. Let me give you some examples. In the old world, we had representation. A painting represented a real thing. In the new world, we have simulation. A computer simulation has no original. It is a copy without a model. In the old world, we had organisms. Bodies were whole, natural, and given. In the new world, we have biotic components. Bodies can be disassembled, redesigned, and reassembled. In the old world, we had depth and integrity. Things had hidden essences. In the new world, we have surfaces and boundaries. There is nothing hidden. everything is on the screen. In the old world, biology was clinical practice. Doctors looked inside bodies. In the new world, biology is inscription. Scientists write codes, they read codes, they edit codes. This is not just abstract theory, it is the reality of late capitalism. Women in Silicon Valley assemble microchips. Women in Southeast Asia work in electronics factories. Their bodies are integrated with global circuits of production and communication. Haraway calls this the homework economy. Work is no longer located in a factory, it is dispersed into homes, offices, and call centers. The boundary between public and private collapses. The boundary between work and life collapses. The boundary between the worker and the machine collapses. This is a nightmare for many people, but Haraway insists that it is also an opportunity. The old certainties are gone, the old enemies are confused, the old strategies no longer work. We need new ones. Haraway finds a model for this new politics in the work of feminist theorist Stella Sandoval. Sandoval writes about women of color. This is not a natural category. No one is born a woman of color. It is a political identity that was consciously constructed. Black women, Chicanas, Asian Americans, and Native Americans came together not because they shared an essence, but because they shared a history of being excluded from white feminism and from male dominated anti racist movements. They built a coalition based on affinity, not identity. They learned to read the webs of power from the margins. They developed what Sandoval calls oppositional consciousness. This consciousness is not about finding a single truth. It is about navigating multiple contradictory truths at the same time. It is about being able to shift perspectives, to see from below, to notice what the powerful ignore. Haraway says that women of color are a kind of cyborg. They are an illegitimate fusion of outsider identities. They have no origin story in the Garden of Eden. They are not trying to return to a lost unity. They are trying to survive in diaspora. Haraway's tone is crucial. She is not writing a sober, academic, neutral essay. She is writing an ironic, blasphemous, passionate manifesto. Why irony? Because irony is about holding incompatible things together. You believe in feminism and socialism, but you also see their failures. You want unity, but you also know that unity often means domination. Irony allows you to keep both truths in your head at the same time. Why blasphemy? Because the old stories are sacred. The story of the fall, the story of original innocence, the story of salvation history, the story of the family, the story of the goddess. Blasphemy is not apostasy. It is not giving up on the community. Blasphemy is taking the stories so seriously that you refuse to let them become idols. You break them open, you question them, you tell them wrong on purpose. Haraway writes, blasphemy protects one from the moral majority within, while still insisting on the need for community. This brings us to one of Haraway's most controversial moves. She rejects the goddess. In the 1970s and 1980s, many feminists turned to goddess spirituality. They celebrated the earth, the body, and the feminine divine. They opposed the masculine, technological, destructive West with a feminine, natural, life giving alternative. Haraway says this is a mistake. First, because it is not true. Women are not naturally closer to nature. Women are not naturally more peaceful. Women are not naturally more caring. These are stereotypes, even when you put a positive spin on them. Second, because it is politically dangerous, if you ground your politics in nature, you are building on sand. Nature is not stable. Nature is not innocent. Nature is a battlefield. As soon as you say this is natural, you have already excluded someone. Third, because it is nostalgic. The dream of returning to the goddess is a dream of returning to an original unity. But that unity never existed. The garden is a myth. The fall is a story. We cannot go back. Haraway writes, I would rather be a cyborg than a goddess. This is a shocking sentence. It is meant to be. She is not saying that goddess spirituality has no value. She is saying that it is not adequate for the political struggles of the late 20th century. The cyborg has no origin story. It does not dream of returning to dust. It does not long for a perfect, whole, unified self. It is comfortable with partiality, contradiction, and irony. Haraway draws heavily on feminist science fiction writers. Why science fiction? Because science fiction is the genre of boundary transgression. It is where humans meet aliens, where bodies are transformed, where gender is not fixed, where society can be reinvented. Octavia Butler's novel Dawn is a perfect example. It tells the story of Lilith Ayapo, a black woman who survives a nuclear apocalypse. She is rescued by an alien species called the Oyankali. Oyankali are genetic traders. They want to crossbreed with humans. They offer survival, but only at the cost of losing human purity. Lilith must decide, is it better to stay pure and die, or to become a hybrid and live? Butler refuses easy answers. The Oyankali are not evil, they are not good, they are strange, they are other. This is the cyborg condition. We are all Lilith. We are all being asked to trade our purity for survival. And the only honest answer is it is complicated. Haraway is very interested in writing. She calls writing the technology of cyborgs. Why? Because writing is about coding, putting marks on a page, transmitting information across time and space. The silicon chip is a surface for writing. The genetic code is a text. The immune system is a recognition system. For colonized people, writing has special significance. To learn the colonizer's language is to gain power, but it is also a violation. It is a betrayal of the mother tongue. Sherry Morago, a Chicana writer, struggles with this. She writes in English and Spanish. Neither is her original language. She is a chimera, a monster, a bastard. But this monstrous language is the only one she has, and it is powerful. Cyborg writing is about the power to survive, not on the basis of original innocence, but on the basis of seizing the tools to mark the world that marked them as the other. This is not about finding a pure, authentic voice. It is about using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. It is about writing in a way that is impure, hybrid, and strategic. Adrienne Rich, a famous feminist poet, wrote a book called The Dream of a Common Language. The title is beautiful. It imagines a world where women can finally speak to each other without distortion. Haraway says this dream is a nightmare. A perfectly common language, a perfectly faithful naming of experience is totalitarian. It erases difference. It demands that everyone translate their messy, partial, contradictory experiences into one clean code. The feminist dream of a common language, like all dreams for a perfectly true language, is a totalizing and imperialist one. Instead of a common language, she wants a powerful infidel heteroglossia. That is a fancy phrase. It means many voices speaking in many tongues, refusing to be translated into one master code. Haraway ends with a striking image. She talks about regeneration, not rebirth. Rebirth is about returning to an original state of innocence. It is about being born again, cleansed of sin. It is a religious idea. Regeneration is different. It is about regrowing a lost limb. The new limb is not a copy of the old one. It might be monstrous, it might be duplicated, it might be strange. We have all been injured, Haraway says, profoundly injured by patriarchy, by racism, by capitalism, by colonialism, by the nuclear arms race, by AIDS, by poverty, by violence. We cannot go back. We cannot be reborn into an innocent world, but we can regenerate. We can grow new parts. We can become monsters. And monsters are not afraid of the future. Monsters do not long for the garden. Monsters know how to live on the boundaries, in the cracks, at the edges. Haraway's final line is famous. I would rather be a cyborg than a goddess. It is a choice. You can choose the goddess. You can choose innocence, nature, unity, and the dream of a common language. Or you can choose the cyborg. You can choose irony, impurity, partiality, and the difficult work of building coalitions with strangers. Haraway has made her choice. She invites you to make yours. Thank you.